at this point, I don't think that they're gonna keep Rick on TV because the energy drink is paying them. I think at this point, I hope they've learned their lessons to not give him. He does not need a live mic. He just needs to come out there and stand out there and not say a damn thing. I don't want to hear, and they can be like, "Oh, the fans are not this man is not selling tickets." I quit using that he's not selling tickets. Sting is selling tickets because it's their last time they're going to see him in that city. Obviously your younger people are selling your tickets. Ric Flair is not moving tickets. Please don't put him on TV. Stop putting him on TV. And if you're going to, keep him away from a microphone. Just let him stand there.
There are people who bow down to Vince when he comes out to the ring and do that kind of thing. We're not worthy thing.
Yes.
So you're always going to get people in a crowd that are going to do that. But most of us know who Vince McMahon is. I mean, Vince is the reason I don't watch WWE. Once Vince is completely finished, severed from WWE, I will start watching it again. He's the only reason. I think, a lot of the WWE wrestlers are amazing. But with AEW, I think there's a part of me, and although I understand what you're saying about not giving him a live mic, and I do agree with you, there is a part of me that kind of wants him to have the live mic simply because I think he will reveal who he is very quickly. I mean,
you're not somebody else made that when the contract came out, and I was like, and my friend was like, I kind of hope he does because I want him to embarrass himself, and I want Tony to, which is what happened on Friday.
And I gotta play devil's advocate here because I said this to Bob this morning, and he's been in business for a ridiculously long time. And I said that, and he said that would be the worst thing that could happen because it would be the worst look in the world for AEW because all of their competitors. I agree with you. I'm torn. I'm also like I'm in the middle now because I'm like the one side of me wants like that exposure because people need to understand that this is a bad human. This is not a good person. He has done.
But then you're going to have but then when you have your former AEW champion Chris Jericho going on the internet and immediately defending him, it doesn't matter because because you saw Jericho and Miro immediately go on the internet and defend him, and so that they're going to keep because Jericho.
But of course they did. I mean,
that's my point. Wrestlers, he's putting his locker room where they're having to go defend this man. And it's going to keep if they give him
that's
the mic.
The other thing I don't like personally.
He's putting them in that position, but Tony knows Tony made his bed, and now he has to deal with the consequences.
I just don't like. For me, also, I think about those poor women who have to go to work every day.
Oh no, yeah, that's one of the first things I
can't stop thinking about that. There have been a lot of incidents, like our governor's a female, and a bunch of guys tried to kidnap her. And that scared me. Like that was extra scary because
it is.
No, and people don't understand what the environment is like for women right now. And I feel like my insides, my guts get really like twisted up. I'm just even talking about it, thinking about the fact that like I'm a woman who has to go to work with that guy every day. That's rough. And I don't care, locker room, boys will be boys, all this crap. Like the only way to get rid of that is to break that cycle, and that's like just
right. But then you have
a lot of work.
That's what I'm saying. But you have Tony. But you have people enabling it because we've talked about it before. There are people who are named on speaking out who work in AEW who are on TV on a regular basis. There are people in WWE, the same thing. These people were named and speaking out, and they're on WWE TV on a regular basis. And then you have Tony knew those allegations were out there, and he still made the decision. And so he put those women in that situation. He's put his women's locker room in this situation where even though he can say, oh, well, the women's locker room's on the other side of the arena, you still employ a man who is a predator. And what does that tell? I mean, and if I'm a woman looking at signing with a company, if I'm Mercedes Moné, and of course she's worked with Ric Flair before, she used to work with him in another company. But if that's to me, that is something I would look at. But it's hard because every company employs. I mean, WWE still does. TNA or TNA/Impact has. They've got Tommy Dreamer who defends Ric Flair openly. So I mean, it's everywhere you go. And it's very unfortunate that speaking out was to try to clear this out. And then you've got people weaseling their way back in. And you've got Tony Khan, who he didn't have to sign Ric Flair, but he chose to. And he chose. So now he has to deal with the consequences.
And I mean, I was just, as you were talking, I just wanted to quickly Google to check I had the right statistic. In the UK, 1 in 4 women have been sexually assaulted or raped. And so this is an awful lot of women who have been a victim of something along the lines of what has been going on, having genitals sort of given to them, you know, unwanted, and various other things, and penises helicoptered into their face, and all that sort of stuff. This is a lot of women who are watching this and seeing this man, and the very act of Tony Khan putting this man on television and holding him up as a legend. You're basically saying to women, I don't care. I just don't care. I don't care that you've been sexually assaulted. I don't care that what he's done. It doesn't matter. That's not important. What's important is my wrestling show. This guy from my childhood, who I love, you know, 10-year-old me loves, that I want to put on the TV show. And Dazza has pointed this out in chat. They had a convicted rapist on one of their pay-per-views. I mean, that was another sort of, as you know, come to Jesus moment I had with AEW, where I almost stopped watching when Mike Tyson showed up. And they teased him last year in Vegas. This year in Vegas, they made some comment about they were going to bring somebody out who was some big Las Vegas person. Everyone started chanting Tyson, and I got up from my seat to leave because I was like, if he walks out, I'm walking out of this place. I'm going, I'm leaving. And it wasn't him. It was, I can't remember who it was now. It was someone else, but it wasn't him. But I just can't, I don't understand the thought process that goes on in a man's head, where he doesn't think, what message am I sending, not only to my locker room, not only to the women in backstage that have to work with this person, but also to all the fans, all the female fans, and anyone putting the television on.
Us three, we watch AEW.
Right. And that's another question that comes up is, are there no women who feel like even in the office space that feel like they can go to Tony and be like, what are you thinking? Do you realize what you're doing by, this is clearly a blind spot for you. Do you realize what you're doing by putting this person on
why
TV?
didn't they call Lisa and ask her about
it? Right. But that's like, is there nobody in the office? And maybe they don't feel comfortable. Maybe they don't feel comfortable going to Tony and being like, hey, this is not a good choice. You're making your women employees feel uncomfortable. You're making, you're going to make your fans, you're going to turn off a lot of, especially in the female fan base, you're going to turn off a lot of these people. Like, is this a decision? Like, are you even considering that when you're doing these things? And it makes me wonder if people around him are not comfortable saying to, is Bryan Danielson open to coming up to him and saying, Ric Flair has a lot of baggage and he's going to, he's going to make women uncomfortable. Are you sure you want to do this? So are there men or anybody around him who feel like they can't even go to Tony with these concerns? I mean, maybe people are telling him like, this is not a good idea. And he's just like, I don't give a shit. It's not my money. It's the energy drinks money, so I'm going to put them on TV. Like, so it just makes me wonder what the process is backstage. Like, how are they vetting people? Like, they've brought in some questionable people, and again, there are people who are named and speaking out who are on TV regularly. So how did he vet this process and be like, oh well, I feel comfortable putting them on TV every single week? Like, it just is very curious how that keeps happening.
I did want to address something Daz is saying in the chat, which he's absolutely right about as well. I don't know if you can get that up. Yeah, the get out is that Tyson served time for his crime. And Daz says, sorry, but no, it doesn't give him a clean slate. He'll always be a man that raped a woman. That's a very, very good point, because I think absolutely he served his time. And I am very much a believer that you serve your time, then you go back into society, rehabilitate yourself, and you do your best to live a good life, and you have the right to go and earn a living, and you have the right to do those things. But there is a difference between going and earning a living and being held up on a TV show as a legend. And I think with Mike Tyson he's earned enough money for 10, 15, 20 lifetimes. Mike Tyson could have done his time and gone off. He could have worked in boxing. He could have done something in sports. But to be a celebrity, in inverted commas, I find that distasteful. I think he's someone who should have stepped away and gone, right, okay, I've done this now. Maybe I'll work in rape advocacy. Maybe I'll work with men who are rapists. Maybe I'll work with men who could potentially become rapists. I don't know, but that's something he could have done. But to then go on a television show and be, hey, it's Mike Tyson, the celebrity, to me, that speaks volumes, not only about the man who wants to do that, but the men who put him there.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, didn't they put Mike Tyson on commentary a while back? And they had him and he was out there. Yeah, and he was talking about Orange Cassidy, like he was putting Orange Cassidy over and like all of this stuff. And I'm like, what is happening? Like we're just and then
that's having a complete lack of understanding of the female.
I think also
like half
with the
population, basically. Yeah. It was like everyone with internal genitalia doesn't matter to this conversation.
Right. Well, and I think part of the Mike Tyson thing is you have him in like The Hangover, where he's like a major focus in that movie, and they center him as this character, as this rich this is maybe eccentric rich person, and who has a pet tiger and this type of thing. So in people's minds, like they don't remember or they forget about the Robin Givens and things like that, and so they see him as just this guy, and that kind of that reframes how they see him, and so they think, oh, that's cool, the guy from The Hangover likes Orange Cassidy, like yes, so exactly. They put him to it. And Eddie makes a really good point. Yeah. Bryan Danielson did defend Vince McMahon.
He did.
He has. He did. And I mean, he has defended. Yeah. As recently as within the last year or so, where he talked to Dave and
Rice. And so Eddie, that is a very good part. So then you have somebody
because
like
they have a different relationship, and it's special, and it's okay.
Sure.
But no, that was sarcasm.
No, right. No, but I'm saying, but because they have that, so then I guess maybe he views Tony the same way, and he's like, well, he's not paying for Ric Flair, so it's fine with me. My wife doesn't work here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mental that goes on. I mean, it's difficult. I do understand it's difficult to, when you know someone, or when you love someone, or when you're very close to somebody who does something that is that awful. And I think that is a very hard thing to deal with internally. I mean, I've been in that situation where I've been friends with someone and then found out subsequently. I mean, obviously speaking out, there are men named in speaking out that I considered friends, and then I wasn't aware of things. And obviously you become aware of things, and you have to make decisions based around what you're aware of. I mean, speaking out was a tough one. I mean, obviously it started in the UK. I think it spread across to America as well, but it had its genesis over here. And I, very early on in speaking out, I did speak about a couple of things that had happened to me that kind of led for me to leave wrestling, reasons behind it. And I didn't name names, and I won't name names because it's a long, long time ago, and there's just nothing to be gained from that. Although, one or two people are still active in the wrestling industry. And I think that it's, for me, with speaking out as someone who was involved, it became a very strange thing, because it started out as people naming things that had happened that were very, that were sexual assaults backstage, and there was some allegations of rape and things, but it did segue into something else. And it also became then about people wanting to put on blast bad partners, bad boyfriends, bad girlfriends, and that's where it became very murky. And then it became very difficult, I think, for people to pick apart what was a genuine sexual assault or something that was predatory from something that was a relationship that had gone wrong, where someone had misbehaved, someone had cheated on someone, or someone had done something that they shouldn't have done, but it wasn't in the same category as some of the other things that maybe happened. And I think that, unfortunately, is now why we are seeing people that have come back from speaking out accusations and are now able to work, because it became with all these things, it just became too big and too wide ranging, and we lost sight of, convoluted, and lost sight of what it actually was. And that's no one person's fault in particular, but it just became very, very difficult to pick things apart. And I think that was why, on the one hand, you've got some people maybe who were accused unfairly, who have never worked again, and you've got other people now working that probably shouldn't be.